So topic of meditation is really very vast. It is said that just as food and exercise is necessary for the body, similarly meditation is necessary for the mind. So to keep the mind healthy, meditation is essential. And without meditation, life is like a desert. So it's a very important aspect of our life. Some people put it towards the end of their life, that is post-retirement occupation. Or some people use it for their own purposes. Because each one has his own way of meditation and his own purpose as to why he wants to meditate. Now in the present scenario, the meditation has become very popular means to reduce tensions, to relax, to have peace within oneself. Because the lifestyle has become such that one is always in a hurry. There are deadlines, time limits, and therefore people have to complete their work within that deadline. And the new developments in technology are so fast. It's becoming more and more difficult to keep pace with it. And in order to keep pace with it, one has to quickly learn, quickly do things, and that creates its own tension. And that tension then shows in different ways in one's life. It affects the body. And then there are many illnesses a person has to go through. So to overcome all that, meditation is prescribed as a therapy. So one has to relax and do away with the tension. So there are so many different kinds of meditations according to what result you want to achieve. And then for that result again, there will be many different approaches. So all these meditations have their limited purpose, have their limited result or outcome. And if one wants those limited results and outcomes, one can go for them. But there, the meditation is being used as a therapy. You suffer from something, either physically or psychologically, and in order to come out of that suffering, you meditate. So meditation is more used as a therapy. But then, this kind of meditation is not called as meditation at all by Krishnaji. Krishnaji's approach is very different. First of all, why meditate? What could be the purpose of meditation? Now, the real purpose of meditation is to come upon the deeper and subtler aspects of one's life. Because one is living a daily life mostly at the physical level. So one goes through various things, one experiences, from that experiences gathers knowledge, stores it, and then from that stored knowledge responds. And so the cycle is repeated again and again. And this repetition of this cycle is considered as one's life. And with every cycle, there is more addition of knowledge to the memory. So this is all that one is calling as one's daily life, completely based on knowledge, limited by the knowledge which has been gathered and stored, which we call as the conditioning of that human being. So living a conditioned life and thinking that freedom is to be able to live as per that conditioning, or to be allowed to live as per that conditioning, is called as freedom. And so one goes on happily with that. But then, is that all there is to human life, or whether there are subtler and deeper dimensions to human existence? And how one is going to find out, how one can come upon it. So that is the real purpose of meditation. And the action that leads one in that direction, one can call it as meditation. So traditionally there have been prescribed many different ways of meditations, each having its own effect. And I'm sure some of you must have gone through them. So some of them, they include gazing at something. That means without blinking your eye, you gaze at a point or at a flame or at an image or at the morning sun or gaze at anything. That is supposed to make your brain thoughtless, supposed to make, supposed to help you to concentrate and so on. Then there are also ways where you just sit properly and observe your breathing, observe the sensations in the body, and through that observation your body is supposed to quieten down, supposed to relax and so on. But whatever may be the way of meditation, the meditator remains the same. So the entity who meditates, there isn't much significant change in that entity because of that meditation. So a person may do what he calls as meditation during some time of the day, and when he is out of that, then he is back to his usual daily course of life. Then he is again his usual being. So he continues to behave in the same way, continues to think in the same way, continues to respond also in the same way. So there isn't much difference the way he lives his life. So according to Krishnaji, he questions, he asks whether the meditation is limited to certain time period of the day or whether it covers the whole of life. Now this is something quite different. all the traditional systems of meditation, they limit meditation to a certain period of time during the day, and they say that, well, you try to be something different during that time period, and then whatever you are during that time period, right, that will affect the rest of the time of your day. But somehow it doesn't seem to happen like that, because once the person is outside that special time period, he is back to his original self and is back to his usual way of living his daily life. So that 1 hour or 1.5 hours has not changed the way he is going to respond to various things in his daily life. So during that 1.5 hours, he feels nice, he is relaxed, and he likes that, doesn't want to miss it. But then the moment he is out of that, he is back to his usual daily chorus. So all that peace, all that nice feeling is gone, and then he is just waiting for the next day for that meditation time. So which means that this kind of meditation is actually an escape from his daily life. The daily life is a boredom, the daily life is a disorder, a confusion, and this 1 hour it just takes him away from all that, and maybe he experiences some different state of mind, but once he has come out of it, he is back to his daily boredom, and so the daily life continues as it is, and so that 1 hour becomes an escape from his daily life. Maybe that escape is necessary for that person, because during the usual activities of the daily life, he has created so much tension, so much conflict, so much confusion, right, that his brain is not able to function properly. So maybe he needs that relaxation, though for 1 hour or 2 hours, but he needs that, and once he goes through that and his brain is relaxed, then he is able to again continue with his daily chorus. So it is an escape from one's daily life, and even that escape may have become necessary because of the way one is living one's daily life. So that is a very limited meditation, and Krishnaji doesn't call it as meditation at all. He says that the meditation should cover, embrace, be concerned with the whole of life. It's not that you just select something from your life and do something with it and then say that is the meditation. So the real meditation covers everything, the whole of life. So we may be living our life in a confused way, in a disorderly way, right? There may be all kinds of activities. There may be lots of things which we are doing which we are not supposed to do. And there are lots of things which we are not doing which we are supposed to do. And so on. So the real meditation should cover all of that. And if it doesn't, then it is not meditation. Then it is some limited activity. So if meditation is done for certain purpose to achieve something, then that meditation becomes just one more activity of the meditator. Because meditator always wants to achieve something or other in his physical life, in his day-to-day life. And the same activity gets extended even during that period of couple of hours where he is again trying to achieve something which he may call as the spiritual achievement. While in day-to-day life he may be having worldly achievements in terms of profit in business, in terms of career, in terms of achieving some position in the society or in politics and so on. So both the places, the aim is to achieve something, and therefore the quality of mind remains the same. The quality of mind is the mind who wants to achieve, who wants to arrive at, who wants to reach the goal. So that is the same mind. In one field it wants to achieve worldly goals, and in another field it wants to achieve the so-called spiritual goals. So there is no difference in the quality of mind at all. And therefore meditation then just becomes the extension of the daily activities, of course with different label. So again, such a meditation has no value, because again it is not covering the whole of life. It is a very, very limited activity, limited to achieve that one particular goal. And if that goal is achieved, then the purpose of meditation is over. Then the fellow doesn't have to meditate at all unless he has projected another goal to achieve. So it becomes then projecting a goal, achieving it, and projecting a goal and again achieving it. And so a cycle repeated again and again and again. So which is quite mechanical. And what goal he wants to achieve will be dictated by his conditioning. And therefore nothing new in that. So this kind of meditation is not of much significance. It doesn't have much meaning because it is very, very limited. It doesn't cover the whole of life. Now, is meditation a result of search? That means you want to find out something and therefore you meditate. Now, what you want to find out, you must already know. Otherwise, how can you search for it? And if you know it already, then it is not different from the projection of your conditioning. That means what you know is as per your conditioning. And from that conditioning, you select something and you say, yes, this is what I want to look for, I want to search for, I want to get at it. Right? So it may be a conception of what we call as God, or it may be an idea of what we call as nirvana or moksha or whatever it is. So we have some concepts, some ideas about these things. And then according to those ideas, according to those concepts, we try to search these things. And naturally, what we will find will be our own ideas, our own concepts. And therefore, there is nothing new. That is not what the different dimension of life. Because you have imagined something which you want to find out, and then you are trying to reach there, what you have imagined. And even if you get it, right, it is not different from your own projection. It is not different from what you have already stored. It is merely an extension of that conditioning. So, this search, meditation cannot be based on this activity of seeking, because we will get, if we are seeking, we will get only what we seek, and what we seek may not be the different dimension of life, may not be corresponding to those deeper and subtler aspects of living. They may be just our own ideas, our own concepts. Because the thought has the tremendous capacity to create illusions. And so a person seeking all kinds of experiences through meditation will get those experiences. And he may say that yes, he had good meditation because he has experienced all those things. But he is experiencing only what he has imagined. And therefore, it is not something totally new. And even if something new comes, he will not be able to recognize it, because he won't find anything matching in his storehouse with respect to what he has received, that new thing. So the new thing may go away unattended by him, and he is only able to see or sense that which he already knows. Something which is totally new, he is not able to receive it, because he is seeking according to his own conditioning, and that something new is not matching his conditioning. So naturally, he is going to miss out on it. And therefore, even before you meditate, all the seeking has to end. Because if you are seeking anything, then you will get only what you seek. And what you seek may not be the truth of life. Life may be quite different than what you are seeking, because what you are seeking is according to your own ideas of what life is, or ideas of what that you are seeking. So all the seeking has to come to an end. So if you are not seeking anything, you are not trying to achieve a result, you are not limiting meditation to only certain aspects of life, but the whole of life is being covered. Right? then what is the quality of mind which is like that? So if we have to approach something afresh, then we should be able to put aside all our conditioning, all the knowledge that we have about it. Because if we are trying to understand something in terms of the knowledge which we already have, then that something will not be visible to us as it is, but it will be visible to us as per our knowledge. That means we will be simply interpreting what we see in terms of what we already know. And what we already know may be stored in terms of all different words. And therefore, anything we come upon, right, that you will try to describe in terms of those words, and therefore understand it in terms of those words, and therefore more likely to misunderstand than understand. So all knowledge about what meditation is has to be put aside, because we are not interested in interpreting truth in terms of what we already know. Because what we already know is the result of the way we have lived our life and whatever we have gathered by living that way of life. Now, whatever we have gathered, there is nothing very special about it. Just because you have gathered it, therefore you are giving a lot of importance to it. But otherwise, it has no significance at all. And therefore, why this insistence that anything new you come upon has to be interpreted in terms of the old. Just because you are familiar with the old, therefore, every new thing, does it have to conform with the old? So, actually, all this knowledge is not necessary at all in order to meditate. In fact, to find out what is meditation, one has to put aside all this knowledge and begin afresh. And if you are able to put aside all the knowledge, then you are already in the state of not knowing. That means you are in a state where you can really say that I don't know what meditation is. So I don't know what meditation is doesn't indicate your ignorance of meditation, but it is an indication that you have put aside all the knowledge you had gathered about what meditation is. And putting aside that knowledge, because that knowledge is a burden, and you cannot come upon the subtler aspects of living carrying that burden. That burden becomes an obstruction because it doesn't let you be flexible, supple, and subtle. Therefore, one has to put aside all that burden. And if you are able to put aside all that burden of the past, of the knowledge, then there is a sense of freedom. Because, at least for the time being, you are free of all that past. It is not interfering in your observation. So that sense of freedom. And then, because all the past has been put aside, all the knowledge about meditation has been put aside, there is no longer any confusion as to what is what, because the activity of the thinker has become silent. It is no longer comparing, it is no longer measuring, it is no longer labeling, recognizing. And therefore, such a mind or such a brain then is ready to go into what is meditation, to find out what is meditation. Now, if one has done all this, that means one has put aside all the knowledge which one has gathered about meditation. Then one has created some kind of order in one's daily life. Because this is also very much necessary. If you are living your daily life in an agitated way, then that same agitated state of mind is going to be there even during that period of time when you are trying to meditate. And therefore, there has to be some order in one's day-to-day life. One also has to understand the significance of sleep. Now, you may ask, what is the connection between sleep and meditation? In fact, if you go through Krishnamurti's notebook, where Krishnaji has described his state of mind in various ways. So in those descriptions, you will often find that he mentions that he woke up in the state of meditation, which means the meditation actually began during the sleep and it continued even after waking up. So we have to understand what is sleep and what are dreams, so that the meditation covers the whole of life, not only the life when you are so-called awake, but also the life when you are asleep. But when you are asleep, you are still living. It's not that you are finished. So the meditation has to cover that aspect of life also. So then, what is sleep and what is being awake? So Krishnaji questions, are we really awake during the day? Although we say that during the day we are awake and during the night we sleep. But during the day, are we really awake or we are really asleep? Because we are lost in all kinds of things during the day. And therefore we are really not awake. We are taken hold of by many things, by our pursuits, by our psychological reactions, by our the situations around us, and so on. So we are usually inattentive. And the state of inattention is like a state of sleep, because you are not awake. You are being taken over by something and you are completely lost in that something. You are no longer attentive. So to be awake is to be attentive. If you are not attentive, that means you are not awake, even during the daytime, although you may say that you are awake. And because of that inattention, there is lot of tension, there is lot of disorder, there is lot of agitation that gets generated. And then that affects the brain. Brain is not able to function properly because of these. The brain needs order, but it is unable to do anything for it during the daytime. Because during the daytime, one is at the peak of creating disorder, because one is inattentive and lots of things happening, and you face those happenings in disorderly way because of conflicts and various things, and not facing things completely. And so there is a lot of disorder, and brain cannot create order during the day. So it is only during the night the brain has an opportunity to establish some kind of order. And when the brain is establishing an order, so through that one dreams. So one has lots of dreams. So dreams are the result of the activity of the brain which is trying to establish order. In fact, during the sleep, the same confusion, the same activity which was going on during the day, during the so-called wakeful state, it continues even during the sleep. And therefore, one dreams. And brain has to spend its resources in establishing some kind of order in it so that it is able to function properly. And therefore, we have these dreams. So if brain is able to establish order, then when you wake up next morning, you feel nice, you feel fresh. You say that, yes, I had good sleep. Because the brain is actually orderly. Brain has been able to put or establish order during that sleep. But if you are not able to establish order completely, then when you wake up, you don't feel very fresh. You say that, well, I slept, but I don't feel so fresh. I couldn't sleep well. And if the brain is not able to do anything about the disorder, and therefore it wakes up again with the same disorder as it had slept, then you feel that you didn't sleep at all. You say that I had a sleepless night. I didn't sleep at all. I couldn't sleep. There was so much thing going on in my head. But if you live your daily life with attention, which means that you are not creating any disorder, because whatever you are attending to, you are finishing it then and there only, so that there is nothing to remind you that this is still there, still to be worked out. So it may be a function, it may be some kind of work at physical level, or it may be a psychological reaction, or it may be a thought, it could be anything. But if you are facing it with attention and therefore completing it, then there is already an order in the brain. So during the daytime, you have lived your day in an orderly way. So when you sleep, the order is already there. So the brain doesn't have to spend its resources in trying to establish orders. And therefore, there are no dreams. There is a state of deep sleep. And during that deep sleep, then the brain is receptive, is open to the subtler and deeper aspects of life, aspects of existence. So then the brain functions in that dimension. And if the brain is already in contact with that dimension, then it is already in a meditative state. Because what we have said is meditation is to explore, to come in contact with the deeper and subtler aspects of existence. And if the brain is already in contact with those deeper and subtler aspects of existence, that means it is already in the state of meditation. And when you wake up, that state of meditation can continue. So it gives you a completely different kind of outlook towards your day-to-day activities. Attending to day-to-day activities through usual like thought, knowledge, thought, experience, and then action. So instead of facing it in that sequence, right, the meditative mind actually understands things in a holistic way. So then life is not a fragment, but it is a whole movement. And when you understand something holistically, the action emerging out of that understanding is also holistic, and therefore able to meet the situation completely. So the sleep is very important. There is a saying in tradition which says that sleeping is like wasting one's life. That means you are not doing anything and you are just sleeping, means you are wasting your time. But that is for those people who are anyway wasting their daily life also, their life during the day also. So if they are wasting their life during the day, they are also wasting their life during the night, during the sleep. So anyway, they are wasting their life, whether they are awake or asleep. But for a person who is living his daily life attentively, right, in a holistic way, then sleep has a completely different significance for him. Then it is not wasting of time or wasting of life. Then sleep is far more important uh, than even the waking hours. So one has to be able to sleep properly, and therefore all the physical activity which results in disturbed sleep should be avoided. Like say if you eat wrong kind of food or if you overeat, then you have uh, funny dreams, then you don't have good sleep. So those things have to be avoided. In fact, whatever way the brain or the body is affected, then that reflects in various kinds of dreams. I don't know if you have taken antibiotics, then due to those antibiotics also you have very funny dreams, sometimes quite fearful. That is the effect of those antibiotics. So similarly, anything which disturbs the brain will result in dreams in the sleep. So if you live your wakeful life during the day attentively, then the brain is already quiet, the brain is already orderly, and therefore when you sleep you don't have much dreams, and then the brain can be in a completely different state. So the meditation has to begin from one's daily life, what one is actually doing. So unless you understand your daily life and put some kind of order there, the brain is not in a position to meditate at all. And such a brain, if it does try to meditate, that meditation will be a very, very limited activity, having very limited effect, and may not change one significantly. One may continue to live his daily life as usual and then also continue to meditate during a couple of hours of the day. But that meditation will be of no significance at all, or will have a very, very limited meaning. So we have just tried to understand what is Krishnaji's approach to meditation. There are many other aspects of it. So we are going to go into them in coming 2-3 dialogues. But now questions, your questions can bring more clarity to what we have talked. So please do ask questions.
Kishorji, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Sir, you described meditation as the mind coming upon a totally different quality of existence, or totally different dimension of existence,
Yeah.
and a subtle dimension of existence.
Yeah.
Uh, and but this seems to be very different from meditation as we have understood by reading Krishnaji, where all the focus seems to be on observer, understanding observation, and but here you're talking of through observation a certain order coming into the brain, and when that brain is quiet, uh, it is not acting, it has freedom, there is freedom in that brain, and then in that empty brain, that empty brain contacting a different dimension. So I mean, this is something that not really come across in the teachings that I have read at least. So could you explain this?
Yeah, it is there in many different ways, Krishnaji has pointed out. Right? So if you are merely living an orderly life, then what is the significance of living an orderly life? Is order a goal in itself? Or why should I live an orderly life? But Krishnaji does talk about, is there something sacred about human life? Right? Is there something which is completely untouched, uncontaminated by thought? And how one is going to find it out? So meditation is through which one can find out or come upon that sacred, something which is sacred. Krishnaji talks about the freedom, he talks about love, he talks about intelligence. Now, all those qualities, how are we going to come upon? Again, to come upon those things is through meditation. But for meditation to happen, we have to first start from our day-to-day life. Because if the brain is all the time engaged in day-to-day chorus and just attending to them, just trying to fulfill them, and so on, and so constantly occupied with all that activity. Now, such a brain has no space and no leisure to explore something which is beyond itself, which is beyond the field of knowledge. And so, the brain has to be, first of all, quiet. It has to be unoccupied. It has to be empty. But that is possible only if one is living one's daily life in an orderly way. Because as long as there is disorder, then the brain is occupied in the activity of establishing order. Because it cannot function properly in the state of disorder. So it needs some order. And to have that order, if he finds that even illusion is helpful in establishing order, then it may accept that illusion also. And therefore, to have an order through attention is very important, because if we don't have the order through attention, then brain may establish order through illusion even. Because if the brain feels insecure, then it is not in an orderly state. It is in complete disorder. It can't function properly. So it has to feel secure. And an illusion may help it to feel secure. And therefore it may accept the illusion. And a person who is trying to come upon or trying to find out the truth about life, how can he find it with the brain which is caught up in illusions? And therefore, by living one's daily life attentively, one has to bring order through that attention. And only then such a brain can then find out or explore the deeper and subtler aspects of life.
Thank you, sir. Understood.
Yeah, if you want, I can send you some references where he has talked about this.
No, sir. References are not needed, sir. But it was just because all this while the focus of the study of the teaching seemed to be coming to grips with observation, understanding what is awareness.
Yes.
But in today's talk, I'm just hearing that
Yeah.
through attention awareness, an order is established in life,
Yeah.
and that order is essential for anything else to happen.
So all that we have been studying or exploring during the previous workshops was actually the preparation for these two workshops. This one is on meditation, and the next one about the religious life. So these are actually the most important aspects of human life, which are only specific to human beings. They are not there in animals or plants. You don't see animals sitting cross-legged and meditating. These are specifically for human beings, and they are also meant to open up those dimensions of existence which are not there in one's life as it is now. So meditation and religious life, these are the most important things, and Krishnaji usually talks about them towards the end of his talks. But if you just listen to any set of talks given by him, right, and you go through them and you see what is his approach, right, although he's describing our day-to-day life, right, so through that description he is trying to make us aware as to what actually is our life, how we are living, and then through that then he is bringing in these factors of awareness, attention, and showing us how they can bring some kind of order in our day-to-day life, how they can free the brain from all the burden of the past so that the brain is empty and therefore very, very receptive and full of energy. And then what is one to do with such a brain? Just to keep it energetic, just to keep it very sensitive, very subtle, and is that the end in itself? It cannot be the end in itself. It is like somebody is maintaining his body in a healthy state. So all the time he is spending to keep the body healthy. But then what is he going to do with that healthy body? Is the health to keep the body healthy itself a purpose of the body. So similarly, if you are merely establishing order, you are making the brain subtler, more sensitive, orderly, right? Then is that the goal in itself, or that brain then is ready to come upon something which otherwise it wouldn't have come upon? Now, if it is ready to come upon something, then that something must be very significant, very important. And that is what it is. That is the come upon what is religious life. And religious life is to find out the truth, to find out if there is anything sacred, is there a sanctity to life, to actually come upon it, not imagine it. So therefore he puts meditation, religious life and the sacred always at the end, because unless the brain has come upon that emptiness, that quality, that sensitivity, the brain cannot explore what is meditation and what is religious life and whether there is anything sacred. It simply cannot explore these things. How can a confused brain, how can a disorderly brain explore into something which is totally orderly? How can a brain which is not sacred explore into something which is extremely sacred, which is supremely sacred? It cannot. Only a sacred brain can explore into something which may be supremely sacred. And therefore, all the things, that is, by being aware, paying attention, observation, and out of that observation, the understanding, and then the ending of the psychological content, right? All that is necessary. Only then we can ask what is meditation and what is religious life. So that is how Krishnaji sequences his talks. So the meditation and religious life comes always at the end. So if he is giving a set of 4 talks or 5 talks, then first few talks he will be talking about this order, art of observation and so on. And only in the last talk or last couple of talks he will talk about what is meditation and what is religious life. That is the sequence. You can find it in any of his talks. You can just pick up any set of talks which he has given at any place during a particular year. You will more or less find this sequence.
Thank you so much.
May I ask her? May I
Yeah,
ask?
please. Yeah, please go ahead, Naksha.
So I think that this order and disorder, concepts of order and disorder,
Yes.
are just the human conveniences. That which we want, the human beings, they have got certain wants. That we want and that which is desirable is order, and that which is not desirable is disorder. So our way of life is like that. So therefore, order and disorder, they are concepts of the mind, and that some sacredness may be beyond the concepts of order and disorder. Maybe, I don't know. You know better, perhaps.
No, it's not a question of knowing. I mean, one can certainly find out whether one is living a disorderly life. We are talking about psychological disorder. Right? So psychological disorder means what is actually happening to us within us. Right? So now, whenever I am angry, I'm already in psychological disorder. When I'm feeling lonely, I'm already in a psychological disorderly state. If I am feeling insecure, again there is a psychological disorder. So are we not familiar with this? Is it a matter of definition as to what is order and what is disorder? You may define what is order and what is disorder, but your actual state of mind may not conform with that definition.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Correct.
Right? So what is one actually feeling? Now that itself is enough to find out whether there is a psychological disorder. If I am in conflict with someone, there is already a disorder psychologically. Right? So it's not my concept. It is the fact. So I think if we go by facts, then probably we don't need definitions actually. Those facts are quite evident, and then you can only act on facts.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you cannot act on images.
Is it necessary that a meditative person should have no big material goals?
No, it's not necessary. A person may have material goals and he may also achieve them, but if he is always busy in achieving his material goals, then how can his brain be free to explore these other aspects? The brain is not free because even during the sleep, the brain will be occupied in achieving those goals. So there is no space in the brain to attend to these other things, and therefore one has to really find out, one has to really find space in the brain. So maybe one limits one's goals of life so that all his time is not occupied in achieving those goals, and therefore he can find some time to explore these deeper aspects of life. Otherwise, a person may have very fantastic goals and keep on achieving them, and even after achieving that goal, he may project further goal because he wants to go higher and higher up, maybe in terms of social position, maybe in terms of business profit, maybe in terms of political achievements, or maybe in terms of acquiring knowledge. Some people, they keep on getting all kinds of degrees. They keep on studying, and so they keep on collecting all the degrees. Then once they get that degree, then they project another goal of acquiring another degree, and so on. So if the brain is constantly occupied with such activity, then it has no time and space to inquire into these other aspects of life. And therefore, I think one has to just find out what is one's interest. If one is interested in achieving these worldly goals only, then one can forget about meditation. It may not be of much use. Or maybe it may have some limited use in the sense that in trying to achieve those goals, if one is developing tension, right, and creating disorder, so maybe meditation may help him to relax and reduce that tension. But then that becomes only a therapeutic aspect of what is called as meditation. And then it is only being used to achieve those goals in life, the physical goals. So if one is really interested in finding out the real meditation, one is really interested in coming upon the deeper and subtler aspects of living, then one has to limit one's physical activity in some way and say that, well, this is how much I will do, and then I have to have time for exploring these. So the interesting thing that happens is that due to meditation, the time taken by you to complete the same amount of work will reduce significantly. And therefore, your goals will not be compromised, because whatever you were doing before to achieve those goals and the kind of time you were spending to achieve those goals, you will need much less time to achieve the same goal. The mind is in meditative state. But that doesn't mean that you should pursue meditation so that you will be able to achieve your goal in a much less time. No. Meditation has to be given the first priority, and everything else then comes as a corollary, as an additional benefit, but not the other things given priority, and then meditation is only subsidiary to these things. So that won't work in that way.
Are not small meditations during the day useful for attentiveness?
Now, what do you mean by small meditations? You mean
These,
to say that meditations restricted to short time period during the day? Now, how can it be? I mean, because we have said that the meditation has to cover the whole of life. And now we are saying that a meditation confined only to, say, 5 minutes of the day. Right? Now, will it help in paying attention? Right? Now, why do you want to call it meditation at all? There is no need to call it as meditation.
no,
You may say
suppose
that, well, no, if you, by meditation, if you mean taking a time away, sitting in a particular posture, then concentrating your mind in a certain way and all these things, right? Then you may say that, well, that is what you do in order to reduce tension, in order to relax. But then why do you want to call it as meditation? You don't have to call it as meditation. There are many various yogic techniques and so on. They call it as yoga nidra, and there are so many other different techniques where you can relax in a very effective way and therefore reduce the tension. But then it is called as yoga nidra, it is not called as meditation. Meditation, we have said, that is to come upon the deeper and subtler aspects of our existence. Now here, you are merely following a technique just to relax your body and mind so that it is able to function in an orderly way. Right? So it's just a technique. Now, why do you want to call that technique as meditation? When we are saying that meditation, according to Krishnaji, is quite different. So if we restrict the use of meditation for that which Krishnaji is describing, then everything else is not meditation. Then everything else are different techniques designed to achieve different specific results. And therefore, if we want that result, then we practice that technique and achieve that result. So that's all. We don't have to call it as meditation. But the various gurus and all these things, they are calling their special technique as meditation and therefore creating confusion in the minds of the people. Because then everybody says that he had a nice meditation and so on. Or he does this and that is what he calls as meditation. So each one is having his own definition of what is meditation. And therefore, when somebody says that I meditate daily for 1 hour, it doesn't convey anything to me because I don't know what he is doing during that 1 hour. Right? But if we restrict the use of word meditation to that what Krishnaji is talking about, then everything else is not a meditation. Then it is just a technique, a specific technique to achieve a specific result. And that's it. So we are not saying that those techniques are wrong or should not be practiced. We are not saying that at all. We are only saying that there is no need to call those techniques as meditation. And if we want those results, we are completely free to follow those techniques.
Sir, what I want to mean is attentiveness during the activities like brush. We get I not say high, small clips during the day.
Yeah. No, but why do we call them as small activities? Because brushing your teeth properly is also an important activity. And if you don't brush the teeth properly, then naturally they won't remain clean. They won't last long. You may develop some trouble and so on. So the thorough cleaning of the body is also an important aspect. And if you do it attentively, then maybe you don't need to brush for a long time. In a short time, attentively, you can brush your teeth much more properly and efficiently, and then forget about it. Usually, our brain has this tendency of measurement and comparing, and therefore it weighs the things, and then it will say that yes, this is important for me and this is not important for me. This I can do it even casually, or this I will do it properly, and so on. So according to that, various activities in our day-to-day life we have categorized as very important, important, less important, and not important at all. And so whenever it comes to activities which are not important, we happen to be quite casual. We are not paying much attention, and we somehow do it mechanically or just finish it in some way or other without much bothering about the quality. And then we try to come to those activities which we consider as important. But then, why does the brain weighs and categorize various things? If the brain has to do something, right, then it is important. Can the person live without doing those things? If he can, then why is he doing them? And if he cannot, then why not do it properly? So, which means that in an inquirer, right, there is no such thing as doing things casually. Either he does it or he doesn't do it. And if he does it thoroughly and properly, attentively. And otherwise he won't do it. That means if it is not necessary to do it, then why should he spend his time in doing it? He will just not do it. But if he has to do it because it is essential, it is important, then he has to do it properly.
म्हणजे मला काय म्हणायचं आहे की ऑफिसचं वर्क करतोय किंवा कोणाशी हे करतोय त्यावेळेला बऱ्याच गोष्टी इन्व्हॉल्व असतात, बऱ्याच घेते, त्याच्यामुळे अटेंटिव्हनेसला थोडासा म्हणजे एफर्ट्स लावावे लागतील. पण स्मॉल ऍक्टिव्हिटी म्हणजे इम्पॉर्टंट नाही असं नाही म्हणायचं मला. स्मॉल ऍक्टिव्हिटी आज इम्पॉर्टंट, ते करताना खूप कमी एफर्ट्स लागतील अटेंटिव्ह व्हायला. तर मग ती सवय एक हे येईल तुम्हाला अटेंटिव्हनेस होण्याचा एक सवय नाही म्हणता येणार, पण मग ते एक अटेंटिव्ह तुम्ही इझिली होऊ शकता त्या केसमध्ये.
For example, say when you are brushing your teeth, actually you are brushing mechanically and your brain is occupied by something else, which you have to attend or which is important for you. So if you are going to have some business meeting, or if you're going to take some class and so on, then even while brushing, your brain is occupied with those things which you will be doing afterwards. But those things are very important to you. But brushing is not. Brushing is just a routine day-to-day affair. And maybe hands are used to do that activity. Therefore, you feel that you don't need to pay much attention there. But that way, what happens is your brain is occupied with some other thought, and then you keep on brushing and brushing and brushing for a long time. And only when you realize that probably you have already finished your brushing, right? And you will realize it only when you come out of that thought. And then you will wash your mouth and so on, right? But if the same thing, if you do attentively, then maybe 2-3 minutes are good enough to finish your brushing. But while brushing, your mind is occupied with so many different things which you consider as important, then the same brushing will go on for a long time, unnecessarily. And that is also not good for the health of teeth. More friction means more wearing out of the enamel of the teeth.
Sir, can I read the question,
Yeah.
sir?
Yeah.
It will be great if you can dwell a bit more on what we mean by order. An example of a disorder in the mind and what it means by establishing order, that may be helpful.
Yeah. So we were saying that disorder in psychological sense, a psychological disorder, right? And the psychological disorder can lead to physical disorder also. And sometimes physical disorder also leads to psychological disorder in the sense that it keeps on reminding you, that physical disorder keeps on reminding you that you have to put order there, you have to put order there. And therefore, you are not able to focus completely on what you want to do, because there is a constant reminder. So what we are saying is that as long as there is a psychological disorder, such a brain is not capable of meditating at all, because a disorderly brain cannot come upon that which is total order. And therefore, it has to first do something about this disorder. So we are not saying that the order has to be established. What we are saying is that the approach of negation is very much required here. That means we don't try to impose order on the already disordered brain, because doing so will only further increase that disorder. Because when you are trying to impose something on disorder, that only further enhances that disorder. And therefore, there is no point in imposing a pattern which we consider as order onto the brain which is in disorder. So now, the only valid approach is the approach of negation, which means that what is not order, which means the disorder itself, one has to understand that disorder and end that disorder. So the ending of disorder is possible only through the understanding of the disorder. And understanding of the disorder is possible only through non-accumulative observation of the disorder. Now, what is the nature of this psychological disorder? So we have said that any kind of psychological reaction is creating a psychological disorder. So we took examples that if when one is angry, there is a psychological disorder. When one is constantly worried about something, then that worrying state of mind is a psychological disorder. If one is afraid, then that fear is a psychological disorder. If there is any kind of conflict at any level, including physical, then there is psychological disorder. So all these disorders, through understanding, they have to come to an end. And when the disorder has ended, then there is nothing but order. You don't have to find out what is order, because if you try to find out what is order, you will find out according to your own concept of what you consider as order. So it will be only a concept. So one doesn't have to find out what is order, but one has to end the disorder. And when the disorder has ended, there is already an order. Because the cosmos or the life is total order. There is no disorder in nature. And we are part of nature. So it's only that through our psychological activity we are creating disorder. But if that activity of creating disorder has ended, then there is a natural order. Nature is always orderly. So I think I have answered this question, I hope.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for this.
In meditation, we see the movement of thought. We stay in what is. We see the disorder in our reactions. We see the inattention. We see the thoughtless state. What else are left in meditation?
I mean, from the description, it seems that the person is occupied with seeing all these things. And an occupied brain, how can it be free? And therefore, there is no meditation at all. So, if the brain is occupied with seeing this, seeing that, then recognizing it, whether it is inattention, whether it is this or whether it is that, and then after those things, in order to observe them, then the brain is already occupied. And if the brain is already occupied, it is not free to meditate. The brain has to be free to be able to meditate. And if the brain is not free, it cannot meditate. So if the brain is occupied, then one has to ask, why is it occupied? Why is it after so many things? What is it doing? Because actually, by saying that or by thinking that I have to understand this, and to understand I have to observe that, and in order to observe that I have to be after it. And therefore that observation and understanding becomes another activity of the brain of the thinker and keeps oneself busy. Then that is, then such a brain is not capable of meditating at all. What we have said is that these activities coming to an end. Right? So as long as they have not ended, the brain is not free. And if you are after something, then you are actually enhancing its life. It will not help in ending it at all. Say a reaction arises in you, and you say that I have to observe it in order to understand. Because without understanding, the reaction will not end. And to understand, I have to observe it, right? So then I am trying to observe that reaction. But trying to observe the reaction becomes an activity. So when the reaction is no longer visible, I am worried why it is not visible. Where has it gone? Has it ended or it is just hiding? And therefore I go after it. And therefore it becomes an activity. To observe a reaction becomes an activity. And then that reaction will play with me. Because sometimes it will hide, sometimes it will be suddenly visible, and again sometimes it will be gone. And therefore I will get completely confused. So your interest to observe that reaction is keeping you bound to that reaction. So there is a bondage between you and the reaction. And therefore, in that sense, the reaction is controlling you rather than you observing the reaction. That means the reaction has you and you don't have the reaction. Something like that. Reaction has taken hold of you, but you are not with the reaction in order to observe. So this is a quite a subtle aspect of observation. So the real observation is possible without the desire to observe. Because if you have a desire to observe, whatever that reason for that desire, right, then you are already bound to the observer. And then that is going to play with you.
Ishwarji,
Sir,
may I
can
ask
I-
a question, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, from the talk so far, I'm just confirming my understanding, sir. So
Yeah.
whatever is done either on the physical plane or the mental plane with the existence of the psychological I will lead to disorder. And
Yeah.
once the psychological I is done away with through awareness, then whatever flows is the real meditation as per Krishnaji. Am I right in that understanding, sir?
Now, what we are saying is that when the psychological reaction has ended, right, and therefore the brain is free, right, then such a brain is capable of meditation. So we are saying it is capable of meditation. We are not saying that therefore it is meditating. It is capable of meditation. Then one can really inquire as to what is meditation, and then the further work that is involved in that. Right? But simply to establish order, right, doesn't mean that you are already meditating. To establish order is to prepare the mind for prepare the mind to find out what is meditation. Right? Now, sometimes Krishnaji says that all this preparation is also part of meditation. But then he is also saying that meditation covers the whole of life. And so in that sense, anything you do which makes the brain capable of meditating becomes part of meditation. But to call that alone as meditation or to say that therefore the brain is already in the meditative state, I think may not be right, because we haven't come upon the deeper and subtler aspects of existence yet. We have just established some order in our daily life so as to make the brain free to explore the deeper and subtler aspects of existence. And if you don't do that exploration, right, and say that, well, establishing this order itself is the meditation, then it's a very limited meaning of the meditation. Krishnaji doesn't mean meditation by only that. He says, well, all that preparation is part of meditation. It is not whole of meditation.
Thank you, sir.
May I ask?
Yeah,
May I ask?
Mike, yeah, please ask. Yeah.
Is the sacredness is total order and total transformation of the brain, sir? Sacredness, you say, told sacredness, other sacredness. Is it total
No.
order or transformation?
Wait. Now, to interpret what is supremely sacred in terms of whether the brain is orderly will be quite a limited interpretation of what is sacred, right? I think we have to say, you are approaching it from the other way, which is not right. What we are saying is that unless there is a complete order in the brain, unless the brain is free from all the burden of the past, brain is not even eligible or capable to explore as to what is sacred. Right? So it doesn't mean that if the brain is orderly, then it is already sacred. It doesn't mean that. It means that the brain is capable of exploring or inquiring into what is sacred, because then that inquiry will not be jeopardized by falling into an illusion. Because if the brain is disorderly, then such a brain may fall into some kind of illusion and mistaken something else as sacred. But with the total order, that possibility gets eliminated. And therefore we say that then the brain is really capable to inquire into what is sacred. But if it hasn't inquired at all, but it is capable but not inquired, then how can it come upon the sacred? It hasn't come upon the sacred.
Good morning, Kisharji.
Yeah.
I just want to make some little contribution, sir.
Yeah.
Study material which you sent, sir, those two
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah.
In one video, like he was very emphatically, he was saying, what is not meditation? The response to the audience and all.
Yeah.
So, like you all already been saying, no, what is not meditation and all. And the second video is completely, it's full of his insight, and it's one-way talk. Like, no, he's not engaging the audience. So that's a beautiful material. And one more thing, I just want to say this, sir. Like recently, I come upon this order and disorderly, sir. So, like one where I have read that he says like ancient Greeks, those they like propounded. The immeasurable can also be measured with thought, something like that. I don't remember, but in Eastern philosophy, it has come out, measure like whenever the mind is measuring, it cannot come upon immeasurable.
Right.
So in that order, he was saying like order means mind which is measuring, the mind which is comparing the comparison and the measurement.
Yeah.
These have to be completely come to a standstill.
Yeah.
So then only something which is immeasurable, you know, like that.
Yeah.
And like as you already said, you know, any motive or any desire to achieve something is already is a impediment. And so order he has brought from that without measurement and comparison, they have to be seen as a thought and they have to be kept at a check. So I thought let me just contribute this.
Yeah, that's right. Because the measurement is actually the activity of the thought. The thought is always comparing, measuring, and so if it measures the immeasurable, then it is no longer immeasurable. It is just what the thought has imagined.
And also he says like it is emptying of consciousness.
Yeah.
Meditation is nothing but emptying of consciousness.
Yes.
And without having any, like when he says, if you think you are meditating, means you are not meditating at all.
That's right.
He says,
Yeah.
you don't know when you are meditating.
Yeah.
That he said in that first video, sir. So it's emptying of consciousness and without having any me and I, you know.
Yeah.
So,
it is the total absence of the thinker. Total
yes,
absence of the thinker. Yeah.
Yes. Like I came upon these points and I thought, let me just, contribute. That's all, sir.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank you,
for
sir.
sharing.
Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
So, sir, Krishnamurti starts to explain meditation by exploring concentration, awareness, and attention.
Yeah.
Then he says, if we are completely attentive with all our senses, there is no me. Like we lose sense of oneself. Then, how does he establish that? And also, why doesn't brain register during meditation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, brain doesn't register during meditation. We have to understand it properly, because the brain didn't register how Krishnaji could describe his states of meditation in writing. Because if you read his book, notebook, Krishnamurti's notebook, so in that book he has described his states of mind, the states of meditation, and so on. So if there is no recording, how can he describe it? Now let us go into this awareness, then concentration and attention, and so on. So awareness is just being aware. That means if there are things around you, right, the very first thing that happens to you is that you become aware of those things. So even when you wake up from your sleep, right, as you are waking up, you are becoming aware of your surrounding. Initially it is vague, but then as you fully wake up, then it is very clear. You are fully aware of what is around you, and then you are able to observe them and so on. So awareness is the first thing that happens. And out of that awareness, you become aware of something. And if that something is interesting, then that draws your attention. So you then attend to that something. And then through that attention, which means all your observation, all your energy is focused on that. And then through that, there is some understanding of that thing. Maybe initially in terms of knowledge or whatever it is. Now that attention becomes concentration when you say that something is the only thing which interests you at that point, and everything else is not of any interest to you at all. which means that you have already chosen something which you want to attend to. But there may be many different things which are also demanding your attention. But then you don't want to pay attention to those other things. You want to pay attention to this one particular thing. And so when you do that, then it is no longer attention, but it becomes concentration. And concentration is always accompanied with distraction, because you want to concentrate on something. You have chosen on what you want to concentrate upon. And as you are concentrating upon it, there are other things which are also demanding your attention. And sometimes, therefore, your concentration then breaks, and that something else comes to your notice. And then you remind yourself that, no, not that something else now, this one particular thing. And therefore, again, you are back to that one particular thing. So this way, the concentration is always accompanied by distraction. So you are in a state of mind where the concentration and distraction are happening alternatively. Maybe sometimes you are able to concentrate for a longer period of time, but sometimes you may not be able to concentrate for a longer period of time. But then it becomes a concentration. The moment you select, the moment there is a center from which you are attending, then that becomes a concentration. It is no longer attention. And then concentration can bring fatigue, can bring about conflict, and can wear out the brain. But in attention, there is no distraction, because whatever that is coming up, that is being attended to. So you are attending to something and something else comes up, then that something else is also being attended to. You are not saying that, no, that should not come. So whatever that is coming up is being attended to. And therefore there is no distraction there. The same attention which is functioning towards one thing is able to function towards anything else. And therefore there is no distraction. So it's a different state of mind. Attention is not concentration. Concentration can be of the thinker. The thinker can concentrate, but a thinker cannot attend. Attention is quite a different quality. Now another point which I have said, that when all the senses are operating, right, then there is no me, there is no sense of the me or the self. Right? Now we have to distinguish between senses and sensory organs. Sensory organs are all the time operating, because the ears are all the time receiving sound waves. The eyes are all the time receiving light waves. The nose, the skin, and everything, all the sensory organs are constantly receiving sensations. And those sensations are being sent to the brain. But if the brain is not processing those sensations, right, then the act of seeing or act of listening doesn't happen. Suppose if somebody is saying something to you and your brain is busy in something else, which means that it is not processing the sensations received through the ears. Therefore, such a brain is not listening to you at all. And so, the actual listening, seeing, these are the actions of the brain. And if brain are not performing those actions, then it is not seeing or not listening. Although the sensory organs are receiving inputs and they are sending those inputs to the brain is still not listening and not seeing, because it is not processing those sensations. It is busy with something else. So when we say that all the senses awake, now you will see that corresponding to a type of sensation, there is a corresponding region of the brain which processes those sensations. So the sensations received from the eyes, they go to some part of the brain where they are processed and the seeing happens. Similarly, the sensations received from the ear, they go to some other part of the brain where they are processed and hearing happens. Now, when we say that all the senses being awake, which means that all these parts of the brain are fully awake. And when the brain is fully awake in this way, then there is no sense of the I, there is no sense of the self. But our brain is usually not fully awake, it is partially awake. Only certain sensations we are processing at a time, other sensations are not being processed. So only certain part of the brain is functioning and other parts are not functioning at that given moment. And therefore, there is this sense of the self. So, does that mean that if we make our brain fully functional, then the self will not be there at all? Right? So, it doesn't mean that, because then by external stimulus or through technology, you may make your brain fully active. And then they say that yes, through technology you have achieved the selfless state. But that selfless state is not the really selfless state, because you have incapacitated something. So what we are saying is that in the absence of the self, the brain is fully awake. But when the self is active, then it is limiting the capability of the brain. The brain cannot be fully active, because then self, as per its interest, will limit the activity of the brain. But in the absence of the self, right, the activity of the brain is not limited, then the brain is free, and therefore free to function as a whole. So I think it is in that sense we have to understand this statement. So I think time is up, and anyway, we are meeting at 5:30, so we'll take up more questions at that time.
Yes, Kishore.
Right. Thank you all.